Hello dear students, today we are going to explain the grammar of Unit 5, Lesson 3. Okay, Lesson 3 is talking about the transitive verbs. The transitive verbs. What are the transitive verbs? A transitive verb has two characteristics, again, two characteristics. Number one, it's an action verb, and of course we know the action verb. Number two, it must have a direct object. It must have a direct object. So how do you know the transitive verb? The transitive verb should be an action verb, and we know the action verb. And number two, it must have a direct object. What is the direct object? A direct object is a noun or pronoun that receives the action of the verb. So the direct object, of course we know the object, the direct object, it receives the action of the verb. Transitive verbs again. The action of a transitive verb transitions through the verb to an object to complete the meaning. So the object here complete the meaning of the sentence. For example, she played the piano. She is the subject and played here is the action verb, so it is an action here, and the piano here is the direct object. What did she play? She played the piano, so the piano here is the direct object, so we have an action verb and we have a direct object. So played here is a transitive verb because it has the two characteristics here. It's an action verb and it has a direct object. Another example, we are reading your new book. We is the subject, are reading is the action, okay, the action verb, and what are we reading? Your new book. So the new book here is the direct object. So we have an action verb and we have a direct object. So reading here is a transitive verb. Another example, Maya bought candy and called her friend. So Maya here is the subject, okay, it is the doer of the action. Bought here is the action, okay. What did Maya buy? She bought candy. So candy here is the direct object. So bought here is a transitive verb because it's an action verb and at the same time it has a direct object. And called her friend. Okay, called here it's an action also. And her friend here is the direct object. So called here is a transitive verb because it's an action verb and at the same time it has a direct object. We have some exercises here. Underline the transitive verbs and circle the direct object. Letter A, David joined the militia. So David here is the subject. Join here is the verb, it's the action verb, and the militia here it's the direct object. So underline joined because it's a transitive verb and militia here is the direct object. Letter B, his company stormed an enemy stronghold. So his company is the subject here, stormed is the transitive verb because it's an action verb and it has a direct object which is an enemy stronghold. Letter C, the American army surrounded the general. So the subject here is the American army, okay. The action verb here is surrounded, okay. It is a transitive verb because it's an action verb, and the general here is the direct object because it receives the action. Letter D, I lit the candles and put the checkerboard on the floor. So I here is the subject. Let here is the action verb, so it's a transitive verb because it has a direct object which is the candles. By the way, there is another transitive verb in the sentence which is put. Okay, what did I put? The checkerboard, so it is the direct object. So from these examples we see that the transitive verbs they are action verbs and at the same time they must have a direct object. Okay, letter E, Sarah fed the cow and brought some firewood in. So the subject here is Sarah. So fed here is the transitive verb because it's an action and it has the direct object, which is the cow. Okay, another transitive verb in the sentence, which is brought. Okay, brought, it's an action verb and at the same time it has the direct object, which is some firewood. Letter F. She thrust the pitchfork into the pile of hay. She is the subject. Thrust here is the transitive verb because it's an action verb and it has the direct object, which is the pitchfork. Letter G. He shook his head. He is the subject and shock is the verb. It's an action verb and so it's a transitive verb because it has the direct object, which is his head. Letter H. They crossed the river at night. They is the subject and crossed is the action verb, so it's a transitive verb because it has the direct object, which is the river. Willem hefted a dirty blanket roll onto his shoulder. So Willem is the subject, hefted here is the transitive verb because it's an action and it has a direct object, which is a dirty blanket. So from all these examples, the transitive verb primary 6, it should be an action verb, okay? It's not verb to be, it should be an action verb, okay? And at the same time, it must have a direct object. And the direct object always receives the action itself. Okay, thank you for listening. Hope you study this lesson well.